From Transport Topics in Washington, D.C., this is RoadSigns. Here is your host, Seth Clevenger.
Thank you for listening to RoadSigns, the podcast series from Transport Topics that explores the trends and technologies that are shaping the future of trucking. In this episode, we're going to continue our conversation about the year ahead with part 4 of our special series on key technology trends in 2021. This time, we're going to take a look at how mergers and acquisitions have been reshaping the trucking technology market. We've seen a great deal of consolidation among the industry's technology vendors in recent years, creating larger organizations with more capabilities, more customers, and more comprehensive technology platforms. But what factors are driving this consolidation trend, and how will it change the trucking industry? To help us answer those questions, we're going to bring in a guest who is uniquely qualified to offer insights on this topic. With that, I'm thrilled to welcome James Langley, who leads Trimble's Transportation Division. Thanks for joining us, James.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So over the past decade, we've seen a great deal of consolidation in the trucking technology sector, and Trimble really is the prime example of that trend when you look back. Trimble has acquired some of the biggest names in transportation technology, starting with PeopleNet back in 2011. That was followed by TMW Systems, as well as companies like ALK Technologies, KDEC, 10-4 Systems, and most recently Cubics. So, James, of course, you haven't been with the company that entire span of time, but walk us through the strategy. Why assemble all of these pieces together under the Trimble banner?
Yeah, if you look at Trimble's history, it has grown largely through acquisition, but strategically, what it looks for is underserved markets that where people do real work, and there's an opportunity with a lot of inefficiency where you can transform an industry. So Trimble's had that success in construction and agriculture and other spaces. And when they looked at transportation, they said, hey, there's an opportunity to do what we do best. We're a technology-based company. We connect the digital and the physical worlds. We like to connect, the back office to the field, and where there's inefficiencies in that space and an opportunity to solve complex problems and transform an industry, we can differentiate ourselves that way, and that's the space that Trimble likes to play in.
Sure. And when you look specifically at the acquisitions and the pieces that Trimble has acquired, you have TMW, so you have transportation management software. You've got in-cab communications with the PeopleNet acquisition. You have routing. You have many different components. What do you gain by piecing them all together? Under one company.
Yeah, so basically, when you think about that whole digital to physical world in the front office or the back office to the field, what mobility brings to the table is the best set of real time sensor data connecting you to the cab of the truck. So if you think about really the person representing transportation in the field being the driver, right? The best real time intelligence you can get is directly from that driver and from that cab. And then the old TMW business, now Trimble Transportation Enterprise, really gives you order to cash operations. So it's really the back office applications of managing mostly, from the carrier aspects, whether it be a for-hire or private fleet. And then when you think about most of the problems that you're trying to solve in transportation, a lot of the problems that customers really want you to solve are related to time and space. So the best source of geospatial intelligence or spatial intelligence in the industry really comes from Trimble Maps, formerly known as ALK. Because they have the high fidelity location data, routing, mapping, navigation. And if you look at all the inefficiencies, whether it be in detention or on time and full applications, the shippers are fighting about with their end customers, et cetera. It's really about better time and space data, and then it's about connected workflows. So if you're trying to, work towards a more connected supply chain to make it more efficient, you're connecting the driver to the back office, to the shipper. And fundamentally, that's the way we view you can solve these workflow challenges and make the industry more efficient as a whole.
And then when you look at the industry as a whole, not specific to Trimble, but really the whole trucking technology sector, there are many other, tech companies in our industry, including some of your competitors and your integration partners that have also been growing through acquisition. So just generally speaking, what market forces do you see driving that consolidation trend in our industry?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. Sometimes it's simply someone looking for a way to grow market share or penetration, but more often, especially from our perspective, it's more strategic. It's about, what are those pieces of technology that we can get to market faster oftentimes than building it ourselves. So, when you have a certain set of skills and capabilities in-house, whether it be the technical domain knowledge or the transportation domain knowledge, it's sometimes easier to acquire technology that's already winning in the marketplace that complements what you're doing and adds to your bevy of tools, if you will. But we also look at it as, are we connecting the pieces across the supply chain to give more of that 360-degree view of the business? The challenge comes in, what really do you want to be your swim lane, and what do you want to be your focus areas where that's really your domain that you own, and where would you want to partner on the outside? It's that whole build or buy decision or partner that everybody else goes through. But I think what has driven a lot of it is, you get upstarts in transportation who see the inefficiency and they go create a point solution. But that point solution, what does everybody want the moment that you create a point solution in transportation? They want to integrate. They want to integrate to the TMS. They want to integrate to telematics. They want to be able to have that embedded or tied into the workflows for the fleet manager, the planner, the driver, et cetera. One of my challenges, for example, back in my Dart days, was I'd have people come in and present some really awesome technologies, and my next question was, okay, does that mean I need another sign-on? Does it mean I need another portal? Does it mean I need another reporting tool? Because if that's the answer, I don't want it, because my people have so much time in a day. So unless you can replace something else that my people are doing today, or show me how it integrates, then I don't know if I can take advantage of your technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about the expansion of technology in our industry over the years. All these pieces do need to fit together, and we have seen how that has been a real driving force in behind some of the M&A activity we've seen. Now, looking ahead, how much more of this do you expect to see? Do you think we're going to see more consolidation in this trucking technology market in the coming years? And also tell us what Trimble's stance is. Is Trimble open to further M&A moving forward?
I think you absolutely will see it continue. I can tell you there's activity not only on the Trimble front, but in others. We get contacted on a regular basis of people having interested in our assets, and we get people bringing their assets to us. And I think it goes back to the conversation we just had, which is the players that are more established are constantly looking for a way to better differentiate themselves and provide more holistic solutions for their customer base. The world is becoming more digitized. It's becoming more connected. And when you think more about that connected supply chain, when these startups who get a lot of funding that come in and they create a great point solution, they've got kind of two choices. I either need to get Trimble or McLeod or someone like that, or Omni, to help me as a channel partner to help me get access to those 3,000 plus transportation customers, for example, that Trimble Transportation represents, or I need to have a strategy for where I kind of get sold out, right? Or I sell off this piece of technology. I think a lot of the movements in the ELD mandate and e-commerce, and there's been tons of money being poured in transportation in the last several years. But a lot of those companies aren't held to the standard of long-term profitability. They're building for growth and they're building to sell. And there's very few of them that are even thinking about, hey, I want to be a standalone business in 10 years, and I want to have be an established vendor or partner for the transportation industry. Most of them are thinking about, how do I build something that's compelling, valuable, creates density, market penetration, and has a hockey stick growth rate that I can turn around and sell for a high multiple. That's not our view. We look at those organizations to see who's winning and losing, who's providing compelling solutions, but we're thinking about who's going to be accretive to Trimble long term. But also, what are those complementary technologies that fit into kind of our roadmap of what we want to be core to Trimble?
From time to time, an issue commands so much of the industry's attention that it requires a deeper dive, a resource readers can turn to, a Transport Topics special report. We're turning our attention to another big issue, electrification and the key factors that will drive this industry trend. In every case, we're working to provide our readers with information, analysis, and clarity on key issues confronting fleets. One comprehensive resource packed with insights that can give you the edge. Transport Topics invites you to learn more about our special reports. To reserve your copy of the latest special report, visit ttn.ws/electrification.
So it sounds like the company's general stance toward M&A remains the same. Certainly open to further acquisitions in the years ahead.
Yeah, I don't see that changing at all in the near future.
And as you mentioned, some of the startups that have been entering the market, there really has been a lot of venture capital that has flowed into transportation in recent years. And as you mentioned, a lot of those startups eventually become part of larger technology companies through M&A. But just look back over the past decade or so, from your vantage point, how has this influx of venture capital and new developers changed the technology landscape in trucking?
I think there's a lot of good to it from the standpoint of you get fresh minds and fresh technology looking at transportation in a way that maybe historically we haven't. So they come up with some really compelling solutions, whether it be from some new artificial and intelligence and machine learning, ways of taking data and generating more compelling solutions, more creative solutions, or whether it be gamification of how you get the users more engaged with how you solve problems. And so I think overall it's good because you get new ideas and new concepts. And at the same time, I think there's this friction that comes along from just like we were talking about earlier is, okay, now how do I take advantage of that kind of high value solution but integrate it into my everyday workflow and into all of my existing systems and applications that I'm heavily invested in and not really interested in changing out, but I want them to be better, right? And I want to take advantage of more modernized technology. I think the other thing you're seeing an influx of with all this investment is you get a lot of greenfield, technology and applications. For example, historically, most of the transportation applications were built to be kind of these monolithic client server applications, for on-premise delivery. Whereas now everyone's coming in with a web first mentality with microservices, which is really more of the technology and architecture of the future. So there's a rush from all the kind of the established existing players, to be more nimble and have more of the kind of this Legoed approach to microservices and subscribable services, move into more of a SaaS-based world. And if we can do that, then it makes it easier for us to take advantage of all these new technologies and plugging those into the current solutions and the future architecture.
Yeah, and that really describes what you've done at Trimble. The acquisitions over the past decade have really expanded the company's capabilities in this industry and have enabled you to build this more comprehensive technology platform. But at the same time, of course, many of your fleet customers also rely on technology provided by other vendors. Whether it be in-cab communications or TMS or routing software. So how do you manage that, co-opetition dynamic that we've seen in the trucking technology space where, some of your competitors are also at the same time key integration partners for your shared customers?
So, out of the last 26 years, I really spent 18 to 19 of those years on the other side of the fence, buying these things and using these things. And my view was, hey, I've got to do what I have to do that's best for my transportation company. So my view as the leader of Trimble Transportation is we have to embrace co-opetition because we have to support customer choices. We won't always be the right solution or the best solution for everything a customer wants or needs. It's really easy to look at this industry and say, hey, it's just about, for example, truckload, dry van, transportation, pick it up and deliver, it's vanilla, and everything's the same. But then you get in on the nuances of the specialty fleets, from bulk to chemical to, fuel haulers or food grade, and different types of operations that have very specific needs or different regulations that require different solutions. And maybe it's more of a real-time dispatch management because I've got, multiple deliveries a day, or I need versus the over the road. I dispatch a guy once a day and I don't have to really pay any attention to it. What it drives is different needs for safety. It drives different needs for regulation. It drives different needs for efficiency and visibility and integration and reporting. So our stance is ultimately we need to focus on our core to do what we do best. to be the best ERP system, if you will, for a TMS and for transportation, to provide the best telematics solution that we can for the industry, the best routing and mapping intelligence, through Trimble maps. But at the end of the day, when these other solutions come in, or someone chooses, for example, to go with McLeod for their TMS because it's a better fit, or go with OmniTrax for their mobility solution because it's a better fit, we have to support those customer choices. The future of the world is more connected. It's really more about how you integrate solutions and integrate data than being just this one-stop shop. And so I think that the modernization of the tech stack, getting to more of these microservices and more of a data first architecture, makes it easier to do that. And then what it forces us to do is be more accountable, that if we want people to buy more of our solutions, our Trimble branded solutions, it has to be 1+1 = 3. They've got to be better together. We've got to win on the value proposition. We can't hold a customer back if we don't have exactly what they need.
Sure. And James, you've alluded to some of your past stops in your career, and you've been leading Trimble Transportation for more than a year now. But you've had a 25-year career in the transportation industry. That includes time at UPS, JB Hunt, U.S. Express. Previously worked at TMW Systems, and you're also recently president of Dart Transit, as you mentioned earlier. So I'm just kind of curious to hear how those experiences over the years informed the way you think about developing technology to solve the industry's problems.
I think one of the first things, when I came into Trimble, and yes, I was with TMW for 5 years prior, so I wasn't a stranger. It's a change in mentality. It's when you go from real time operations in transportation is 24/7, 365, Mach 2, hair on fire. And then you get into a technology company, and things take time. But I think that there's a cultural attitude, if you will. There's a mindset that you have to serve this industry that says, "Hey, our customers never sleep, so we can't either." So that means we have to be responsive. That means when COVID comes, and it happens, or when it's retail peak, or when you have some other transportation crisis or issue, that you've got to be available. So it's changing people's mindsets. It's not that you have to have all the answers, but in transportation, you've got to be responsive. Because I don't think any of us would appreciate, this past year, if the milk didn't make it on our shelves, or bread, or diapers, or wipes, or anything else, our families needed to get by. So if the driver never gets to sleep and transportation never gets to sleep, we can't either. In addition to that, the other mindset that I've been trying to bring is to think about our solutions more from the customer's mindset as opposed to our product P&Ls. I think it's really easy for a technology company to get caught up in the mentality of, all right, how do I create the best, mobility business, the best enterprise business, et cetera, as opposed to how do I serve the persona that is the driver to make their lives better? How do I serve the persona that is the for-hire carrier or the private fleet to make their lives better? How do I serve the shipper? If I'm going to connect the supply chain, I need to think about the workflows and the connected supply chain more from data, order to cash, end to end across products. That's how 1+1 = 3. That's how you drive out the inefficiency. It's not about how do I maximize my mobility product, or my TMS product, or my mapping product.
Sure. And James, I also want to get your thoughts on how much the trucking industry has changed over the past 25 years while you've been in it. I've been covering the industry for 10 years, but I'm eager to hear what you think, having spent a quarter century in the industry, and seeing it evolve over the years. And not just the industry itself, but also technology adoption in the industry. Take us back, over the course of the last 25 years, just how much has changed.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny, because on one hand, I can sit there and name all these amazing changes. On the other hand, I can tell you everything that stayed the same. We're still solving the same basic challenges we were solving 25 years ago, but the landscape and the technology and the tools that we have to deploy to solve those, have definitely dramatically changed. Of course, my whole career has been, post deregulation, so I can't speak to that. But I've talked to some who've been in it longer than I had that can tell me how dramatic that change was. But if you think about, once upon a time, you didn't even really have telematics. That wasn't that long ago. And now, we can't even keep up. You talk about, becoming more kind of hardware agnostic, mobile applications. I think there's been more outside technology influence that have impacted transportation even more so than even maybe the innovation within. The impact of cell phones, just to be able to communicate with drivers and to, have a different way of keeping up on a regular basis. We used to be scared to death about how many characters we used to communicate with a driver in a SATCOM message because we paid by the character, right? And now it's all unlimited data and it's free. So, people have had to change their vernacular. We used to have to basically, a truck, you were in trouble if you spelled truck TRUCK, you better say TRK. And a pre-plan wasn't PREPLAN, it's PRPLN, right? Because, you had to shorten all that and save money. So, things like that have changed dramatically. And you talk about some really entertaining messages. Go read those dispatch communications came to a driver. I'm surprised drivers, didn't go bald even faster because they would get all these short firm hacked messages that were saving us money, and there's no reason we had communication problems. But then fast forward a bit into in the last 5 to 10. You've definitely had a major acceleration and advancement in safety in the cab of the truck, where you've got a whole bunch of OEM driven technologies and third party solutions, for advanced monitoring systems, for braking and rapid decel and lane guidance and things like that. And there's been, a measurable difference in just the sophistication of the truck and, eliminating those and preventing those accidents over the road. I think that's been a huge change from the safety aspect. And then, of course, this latest in this ELD mandate combined with this whole e-commerce revolution, the impacts on transportation. So, what's happening now is, in a lot of ways, we basically turn the world on. If you think about it, there was a million and a half plus trucks that weren't necessarily using ELD devices in the cab of the truck. They were probably living off their phone. Now you've got a light bulb in the cab of all those trucks. You've got connectivity to a whole bunch of assets out there that you couldn't even see before, right? And the advent of visibility, one of the things that I think people miss oftentimes is why do shippers love visibility? It's not just because they get visibility. It's the first time in the history of transportation that a shipper actually gets direct access to a driver. A lot of times there's been a barrier between the shipper and the carrier to the driver. There's been a wall, right? It's been opaque at best. But this actually gives them the most, kind of real-time visibility straight into the cab of that truck of what's going on with their shipment. So it's more than just visibility, it's connectivity in the supply chain directly to the driver. And now they want more of it, right? And then if you think of the e-commerce side of it, it's driving us kind of back to JIT all over again, as people tried to adjust the agility of the supply chain for, every time somebody orders or buys something, if you don't have it in stock, they can go 5 other places in 0.2 seconds and find someone else to buy it from. Right? It changes the dynamics. You can't pre-stock this in advance. You can't get the economies of scale you once could get in, warehousing and fulfillment and manufacturing, because you've got to be more nimble to adjust to that pull-through demand from the end customer. So, and then all of this is driving a move to web-based technologies. If I were to survey, we talked to our customers when I was at TMW, not that long ago, let's say 7-8 years ago, and 8 customers out of 10 were like, I want nothing to do with a web-based TMS or web-based applications. I like having my control. I like having my security. I like it being on-premise. Now 8 customers out of 10 are saying, when are you going to have all web-based applications? Because I have to connect and I have to get with the times. So that migration to web-based technologies so that you can have connectivity, so you can have the connected supply chain, the visibility, the actionability, it's completely changed.
In times like these, it's crucial to stay informed. Transport Topics is offering all the information you need to make business decisions in these unprecedented times. And in the wake of the many event cancellations and group gatherings, TT ensures a virtual way to consume business content and conversation. To join the conversation and stay ahead of the news, follow Transport Topics on all social outlets or by visiting ttn.com. ws/stay informed.
Yeah, I want to pick up on some of your comments about this increasing demand for more visibility in the marketplace. And James, at Trimble, in your current role, you've been discussing opportunities to improve collaboration among not just carriers but shippers and 3PLs as one important way to help create a more transparent supply chain. So, how can a technology supplier like Trimble really make that type of more collaborative approach a reality?
Well, I think that there's been the desire for a long time for shippers and carriers to do business better together. And what's happened in the last few years is you've had some organizations try to tackle this. You've got the Ubers of the world and the digital freight brokers and different things that are trying to solve some of the inefficiencies in procurement, especially in more of kind of the spot market procurement. But if you get to these microservices, subscribable services, and a more of a web first platform, then you can see a world where you have more direct access from the shipper to the carrier through the 3PL to the driver, all together in one integrated platform. The way I think we can help most is we're agnostic. A lot of players that come into it is, well, frankly, even if you look at the big technology players in transportation, they come at it, but they have the skin in the game or the stake in the game where they make their money on freight. And so the rest of the industry struggles to, kind of want to adopt through them because they see that it's kind of being consolidated or commoditized. I can tell you a lot of the mid to large size carriers are kind of terrified of Uberization or too much transparency or losing business or being reverse engineered or someone backsoliciting their business. We have an opportunity as an agnostic technology provider to truly bring them together in a win-win scenario where their data is safe, it's secured. We don't come at it from the standpoint that, hey, we're trying to control and make money on the freight. We make money on technology. And so that lowers a lot of the barriers to kind of bringing people together when they know that you're in it for the win-win, because we make our money on selling technology, not on nickel and diming, or trying to put another middleman in between on a freight transaction.
Shifting gears just a little bit, I want to take a moment to talk about the COVID-19 pandemic, which of course has been a very challenging time for all of us, for our whole society, including the transportation industry. And through the course of this event, I've consistently heard that technology and freight visibility have really played an important role in helping shippers, carriers, and 3PLs adapt to the sort of this new reality and all the challenges and disruptions that have come about. But what are your thoughts on this, James? How has the pandemic affected trucking's technology market?
Well, I think we were all forced into this world of we had to figure out how to work more remotely. So, bottom line is whether it be, your dispatch or whether it be, connected to the driver or the mechanics in the shop or whatever, you've got all of this, these protocols and distancing and different locations that are shut down. So you're forced to do business in a more digitized way. Well, the good news is the world has become a bit more digitized in the last, 5 to 10 years to enable it, but is forcing the adoption at a much more accelerated rate than what you saw previously. People wanted to rely on kind of the old ways of doing things, and right now, for the shippers now to get visibility into the cab of the truck, what they're asking for is not just to see it; they're asking to be able to take action on it, right? And so they want to be more directly connected in a digital way. But what our carriers are asking us for is, they're like, hey, we've got to figure out how to manage more remotely, and it goes beyond just the visibility and the advent of visibility and the value that brings. It's things as simple as how do I support my systems, my integration, my infrastructure. Your average carrier out there doesn't have 500 people in technology. They've got a small staff of technologists, and now they're living on on-prem applications that are supported by that one engineer or one outsourced rep. And they're trying to think about sustainability. So if that person gets COVID or that person gets sick and I don't have that redundancy, how do I get the continuity of my business and my applications and my integrations when I don't have that resource available because I have a single point of failure? And I think what shippers have realized, the reason that visibility and that connectivity becomes so valuable to them is that really has happened. I could give you dozens of examples of where, someone got sick or an office of people got sick. And in certain cases where people were kind of more modern in their infrastructure and their support and the redundancy, they were able to carry on, right? And there wasn't much of a blip on the radar. But others that were, kind of that single point of failure, heavily reliant upon a resource or two inside of an operation to support all this technology, it was very problematic, and they were leaning hard on us to help them solve those problems and to create that redundancy so that they could have that business continuity.
Yeah, it certainly has tested the flexibility and adaptability of companies across our industry. But before we wrap up the conversation, I just want to kind of leave with on a forward-looking note. Are there any other technology trends that you're watching? What do you expect to see in the year ahead?
Well, I think you're going to continue to see people race toward the digitization of the supply chain. And I think that what that really means is those who get really good at not just speaking data services or artificial intelligence, machine learning applications and capabilities, but actually deliver on them are really kind of the next generation of solutions that are going to win going forward. There's collaboration. I connect the pieces. That has value. And then there's optimization. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is, we're spitting off petabytes of data out of all of this information. It's who can leverage that in the most efficient and effective way going forward, connecting the pieces and simplifying the actionable intelligence at the point of impact. Beyond that, I would say I can't imagine the regulation coming post COVID doesn't push us to more investment in autonomous solutions. And I'll be the first to tell you that I don't believe or I don't think we're really ready for that. The autonomous trucks over the road, but I bet it gets accelerated based on what's going on with COVID and the regulation that I think is coming from the government side. So I think you better pay attention to how you can be more remote, efficient in the supply chain, and how you can do that more autonomously. So I think those autonomous technologies, we probably better pay attention over the course of the next, 5 years or so. And then I think, last but not least is more of what you started with. I think kind of after all this initial investment that you saw come into this space, pay attention to all these technology companies. There's going to be winners and losers. And what will happen is, the people that had really compelling solutions, maybe 7 people try to tackle that same problem at the same time, but only 1 or 2 of them gain critical mass. And now, when that really rich funding from the venture capital runs dry, then those people are going to be looking for higher ground because now all of a sudden it's not about growth anymore. It's about sustainable profitability. So, there's going to be winners and losers. I think there'll be a stream shakeout. We're already seeing in a lot of the ELD space, for example, there's a lot of the players that have come in and they are so backed up on their commercial commitments that they've made and promises made. They've got a whole lot to deliver and a lot of explaining to do. So, that's coming because when you're in growth mode, it's all about, commit and deliver and grow and commit and deliver and grow. But at some point, when it turns and says, okay, now I need you to be profitable and sustainable, it's a different mindset than just, go by the marketplace or go commit yourself to the marketplace. So there's going to be a lot of fallout and there'll be winners and losers, and it'll be interesting to see how that consolidates.
Yeah, I certainly agree. We're going to see. It's been fascinating just to watch over the last decade. How trucking technology has changed in pretty dramatic ways, and I don't see that slowing down at all in the years ahead. I do think that this is a great stopping point. So let's leave it there. And thank you again, James, for joining the podcast and sharing your insight. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Did you know you can ask Alexa to open Transport Topics? In just 1 minute, you will hear the biggest trucking headlines of that day. Be prepared and start your morning off right with Transport Topics.
Before we close, let's take a moment to revisit our original questions. What factors are driving the consolidation trend in the transportation technology market? And how is this changing the trucking industry? While some acquisitions are designed to expand a company's market reach or add customers, Most of the M&A activity we've seen in recent years has been more about adding new capabilities and creating efficiencies by combining different elements of fleet management technology. Another factor fueling this trend is the influx of private equity and venture capital dollars. We've seen a flood of tech startups enter the industry in recent years, and quite a few of them have since been acquired by larger organizations. In this environment, technology vendors often face a key decision: whether to purchase another company that has developed a new capability or to build it internally. Given the rapid advance of technology, the expedient choice is often to buy rather than to build. But even as these companies build larger unified technology platforms, there will always be room for new players with new ideas, and competition will only increase in the constantly expanding market for transportation technology. If you've enjoyed this episode of Road Signs, please let others know. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If my questions have sparked questions of your own, share them with me and the Road Signs team. You can email us at share@ttnews.com. We'll read them and respond daily. And of course, we'll be back in 2 weeks with a fresh episode of Road Signs. Until then, I'm Seth Clevenger. Thank you for listening.